live broadcast of round 5 of the Oceanic Sprint Championship from a virtual representation of the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. We've got some incredible racing for sure coming up for you tonight. My name is Reese Gardner, and alongside me once again, Brock Cat-Eye. Brock, OSC time once again, GT3s at Spa. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, it's great to be back. Thanks, Reese. And I think that's the best pronunciation of the circuit name I've ever heard. It's great to be here, and I think we're in for a really good night of racing. The qualifying times are tight, and like you said, Spa can throw up a lot of challenges. Just before the broadcast, we were discussing incident points, and they are an issue at this track, as we all know, and track limits tend to be not forgiving here. So it'll be interesting to see how the guys manage that. And of course, we do have our 45-minute race here tonight, and some of the usual players out there tonight as well, Reese.
Yeah, certainly. We've got our usual suspects, as you said. Still loading into the server myself, but I'll be able to commentate on the live action as it's coming to you very, very shortly. But we were observing a single server on our way up to starting the broadcast, and it turned out that 4 guys from the other server went faster than everyone else in that server. So we got a bit of a shake-up for the field once we go through the grid when the race session begins. But as you said, Brock, these track limits at Spa, extremely unforgiving. Spa has long had a reputation in iRacing for being one of the most brutal when it comes to off-track incident points, and they have been relaxed in a couple of places in recent seasons, but it still hasn't quite lost its reputation. And another thing that we have to consider coming up to this race session is that we are using the endurance layout that has the extremely long combined pit lane. Myself and Director Jay Kennedy were discussing earlier, it may very well be possible that some people might try to fuel save just to avoid that long trip through the pits for what would only be a 7 or 8 second stop.
Yeah, and that's what I love about this series, is the strategy behind it. The guys know that they can go a full race on tyres, so it is only fuel. If they can get into the draft and they can save a lot of fuel, they may just be able to make it, or at least save a lot of time in the pit lane. Like you said, with that endurance layout, there's an extremely long trip down there, and you feel like you're just losing the world behind you when you go down pit lane.
Yeah, you certainly do, especially with the 60-kilometer-an-hour pit speed limit, and you end up spending well over a minute or so in the pits, almost going a lap down in some cases, depending on the class and your pace. So it will be intriguing to see what kind of strategy plays the guys come up with tonight. And as you said, tyres will not be an issue. GT3 tyres can easily last a 45-minute race, but in terms of temperature, the track is as cool as always. We've got 26 degrees Celsius air temperature, 29 track temperature, and it's partly cloudy in late afternoon conditions. So we've seen some very fast times coming from these guys in the qualifying session. I believe pole would have been about a 15.3, 2 minutes 15.3. So I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of pace these guys can extract from race pace. So let's just have a look at the standings now, Brock. And the top 10 in the championship is looking quite intriguing. We've got ourselves Ross Rizzo in the championship lead right now, with Adam Briggs and Craig Edwards completing the top 3. And it doesn't look terrifically close at the moment, but one result can obviously shake things up.
Yeah, there are a fair few points on offer each race. So we can see Cameron Dance in 4th there. We have seen in previous races that he hasn't qualified very well, but he tends to race through the field a bit there, and he hasn't gotten any wins or anything like that, but he's still in 4th position. So it's really important to consolidate in this series and make sure that you pick up any points that you can, because as you said, right now the gaps are large, but we still do have another 5 rounds of racing after this. So there is every chance for someone that's a bit further back in the pack, push their way forward up to the top and take on the likes of Rizzo, Briggs and Edwards in that top 3.
Yeah, certainly. One driver that we have been taking a look at for most of the season has been John Peasnick, who is sticking it out in the Ford GT, widely considered to be the worst of the GT3 cars when it comes to the balance of performance. But he's still there in that car that he's almost become known for driving, and he's managed to hold on to 8th place in the drivers' standings. He's been shown to have overdriven quite a few times in this series since he chose it as his full-time drive, but he's got those shadows of the extremely fast driver that we know Peasnick to be, and it's quite a big gap up to the top 3, but who knows? John Peasnick might very well be able to consolidate some more positions if he can keep that car on the road and minimize those snaps that we've seen from him in past rounds.
Yeah, Peasnick has been really good at getting a fairly decent result, and for a guy, the only person in our field racing the Ford GT3, he's done really well. And like you said, it's a car that's widely considered to be the worst of all the GT3 cars, and there are a few on this service, and he has done really well to stick it out. So I'm not too sure where he's qualified for tonight, but he was only a few tenths off some of the top guys in Server 2, so he shouldn't be too far down the order, and we'll have to see how the Ford GT3 and its straight line speed is against the likes of the Mercedes and Audis and some of those newer, faster cars that have come onto the service in more recent times.
Yeah, certainly. And as we're gearing up to tick over into the race session now, final driver that I want to focus on in this top 10 is Reece Gasoul. We've seen some fantastic pace from him, but unfortunately he's run into a couple of incidents that have put him out of contention. Donington Park comes to mind. He had really good pace there, but unfortunately was not able to convert that into a race win.
Yeah, it was just a bit of a bit of unfortunate event for him there, and I believe we've got the grid on screen now as the cars are starting to line up here for the race at Spa. So in first place we've got Craig Edwards, and then second Trent Thomas, Forzan El Nabi in third, and John Peasnick in fourth place. A great effort in that Ford GT. Leighton Fine in fifth, Anthony Winkleman sixth, Ross Rizzo in seventh, Jacob Schooley, who didn't have the best race last week, unfortunately, in eighth, his teammate Adam Briggs in ninth, and Philip Worley rounds out our top 10 tonight.
Yes, car number 010 in Martin Silvassi starts 11th for Trick Sim Sports, with Gary Hamilton starting in 12th. Thomas Hens for All Star Motorsport in 13th place, with Joshua Skin in 14th. 15th, Scott Sislowski with Daryl Carter and Dan King in 16th and 17th. 18th to 20th is taken up by Thomas McMillan, Liam Burns and Cameron Dance.
Then in 21st, we've got Chris Hill, 22nd, Philip Morton, 23rd, Daniel Misdale, 24th, Jeremy Washington, 25th, Adam Wright, 26th, Corey Ott, 27th, James Wilson, 28th, Steve Jansen, 29th, Carl Raper, and 30th is James McKee.
And rounding out your field from 31st to 41st, we have Damon Stockton, Benjamin Johnson, Reese Keane, Isaac Nichols, Mark Simon, Matthew Clote, Matthew Huppets, Neil De Bruyne, Gregory Colgan, Hayden Ford, and Aaron O'Brien. A 41-car field here in the Oceanic Sprint Championship. The pace car has pulled into the pits, and now the field will be under the control of Craig Edwards coming out of La Source. Remember, on this layout of Spa, the start-finish line is on the run up to Eau Rouge, so can't go too soon. Craig Edwards on the inside with Trent Thomas. He's going to have to do a bit of catching up on the outside, and it looks like he's already lost out because Edwards is away, and Carl Raper, Forzan El Nabi dropped back behind Trent Thomas, and he's just been overtaken by Peasnick coming into Eau Rouge. So Fusion Sim Racing 1-2 up the front, and they're starting to jostle a bit in the back. Forzan El Nabi all over the back of John Peasnick here.
McMillan's around.
Oh, yeah, already we've got an incident here at the start of this race. Oh, goodness me, Thomas McMillan in the air. That is not a good start for him. Obviously involved in an incident there with Dan King. That was very unfortunate. Not the way either of those guys would have liked to start that race, as we've got a replay on screen. It just looks like, and we got a caution.
Safety
Simon
car.
Mazzomo thrown out the yellow flag, but looks to me like McMillan slowed up a bit coming up to the top of the hill, and King just went right into the back of him. Looks like Cam Dance was involved in that too. Had a BMW involved in that as well.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Oi Rouge, you sort of got to check up a little bit through the middle there, and yeah, Dan King has just gotten the back of McMillan there, and yeah, well, it's all over from there. He got a bit of air, and then he's been hit again. That sent him up into the air even further. So unfortunate to see, but we did predict that Spa would send out some carnage our way, and already we're up into Oi Rouge turn one of the circuit, and it's already happened. So we've got the safety car now. All the guys will come round under the control of the pace car, and we'll go from there tonight.
We certainly will, and this has big implications for strategy, actually, because there's a prime chance to do some fuel saving behind the safety car. If there's at least one more caution during the race, then this race could go pit stop free.
That's very true. Yeah, if these guys, you know, clutch and coast and all that fun stuff to try and save some fuel, you're very right. If we have one more safety car, they may all be able to make it to the end. So I'll be very interested to see how that all works out. And that's what I love, strategy. Strategy makes racing so much more interesting, as well as the battles on track that we see.
It certainly does. Well, Craig Edwards and Trent Thomas complete the first racing lap of this event, of course, under caution conditions, and now they'll come under the control of the safety car as they come up to the top of the hill, sticking very close to each other. But John Peasnick trailing behind there as we see everyone negotiating La Source at speeds that may be a little bit slower than what they were hoping at this point in the race.
Yeah, well, I don't think we've seen many safety cars across the course of OSC so far. So this is relatively unknown territory for these guys, and I think we can see Peasnick lagging a bit because he may have been just saving fuel, like you'd suggested. So they're not in a rush to get anywhere, and they've just got to keep circulating as per usual, and hope that the race goes green pretty soon and we can get it all underway. We've still got about 40 minutes left in this race. There's still plenty of time to jostle about and race hard.
Certainly is. Well, the field is now bunching up behind the safety car on the Kimmel Straight. And now, for the drivers, it's just a waiting game until the safety car pulls back into the pits. And I would predict that it would be out, it would actually, sorry, be back in the lap after this one. Because a lap around Spa is quite long. This track is pretty much bang on 7 kilometers long. So it's a very long safety car lap around here, and everyone is saving fuel. So clutching it on the downhills and keeping it in sixth gear is the order of the day right now.
Yeah, and that's a smart way to play it. We said it, and it's obviously all the other guys are thinking it, that they need to be saving fuel because of how long the pit lane is. They're already losing so much time in that part of the race. They need to see if they can make up any time at all in the pit lane. So these guys, you've got Trent Thomas, John Pease, Nick Elnaby, those guys sitting behind Craig Edwards are in prime position to save fuel down the straights. And I imagine that Trent Thomas and Craig Edwards, should they get away, may even work together to try and save fuel together so that the Fusion Sim Racing guys can take home a 1-2 tonight. But as we've seen in Oceanic Sprint Championship, anything can happen.
Yeah, certainly. This series has really turned it on in terms of excitement. GT3 racing tends to have a bit of a bad reputation, at least in the official racing sense. But in this hosted series, we've seen our fair share of incidents, but for the most part, the action has been clean while still remaining exciting. Hopefully, we get some more of that action tonight without too many more casualties. Obviously, Dan King and Thomas McMillan not having the best of nights. They are both in the pits, and I think they may very well be out for the night. And given the text chat at the moment, I think there might be a bit of a dispute going on between those guys.
Yeah, I think you're very right there. Obviously, nobody wants to get taken out on the first lap like that, and McMillan hasn't had the best luck in this series, as we've seen in previous races. He's gotten involved with some altercations and gotten damaged through mostly no fault of his own. So having that happen to him on the first lap of this race, I can imagine he'd be very frustrated inside that All-Star Motorsports Mercedes AMG GT3. So hopefully he'll come back next week and give it another red-hot crack, but until then, he's just going to have to keep practicing.
Yeah, and I'll say the same for Dan King as well. Obviously, with that sort of incident, you obviously don't want to be the guy actually hitting someone in the rear. So it's obviously not a good look. But Dan King is a very skilled guy, so hopefully he can come back nice and strong. Gregory Colgan Another car that was involved in an incident on lap 1. It looks like he's just gotten his car repaired and he's going to go back out onto the circuit very soon. He's just revving up in his pit box, waiting for the okay. Who's pitting? Someone's pitting.
Got a few cars.
Oh, okay. So the Trick Sim Sports guys are pulling a bit of an interesting one here. This is something that actually I had failed to consider, and my bad for not doing that. They do have the opportunity to pit under safety car and not lose much time at all. So it's actually a good call here by these guys.
Yeah, well, you can see they're obviously all in the same Discord, and they've all made that team decision. Go in, get the fuel. We'll be back. We'll be out the back. But yeah, this is a bit of gamesmanship and some strategy going on here. This is going to make this race exciting. The BMW hasn't been a slow car either. We've found since the update, the BMW has sort of come back to life a bit and now is sort of fighting the likes of the Mercedes and the Audi. So these guys, and we know all these three guys as well, have speed. Rizzo is our series championship from last season, and Silvassi and Winkelmann, both very fast drivers. So I'm curious to see how this all pans out.
Yeah, well, they're already out of the pits. Anthony Winkelmann, it looked like just stopped and went again. Looks like he might have taken a fast repair or something to that effect. But all three of the Trick Sim Sport BMWs are back out onto the track at the end of the pack behind the safety car. So they've got a long line of cars in front of them if they want to make up positions on track. I guess from now, they just got to hope that they can get by them in due course, or everyone in front of them is.
Yeah, and there are a few good passing zones on this circuit, which means that these guys will be able to throw it down the inside if they've got the braking capacity to do so, or try and battle it out into the bus stop and into Oil Rouge. This circuit does definitely not lack those overtaking spots. It's just finding the right time. And the problem with the BMW is it's great through the corners, but its lack of straight line speed can mean it can fall victim to the Mercedes, particularly but also the Audis now with their new updates. So they're going to have to be careful and really take advantage of the more windy, downforce-oriented parts of the circuit compared to those straight line areas.
Yes, indeed. You can basically split Spa into three well-defined sections. You've got the first part of the track from La Source to Le Combe, which is basically incorporating the Eau Rouge section and the Kemmel Straight. Then you've got the entirety of the section from Le Combe all the way to Stavelot coming onto the back stretch, which is definitely the more mechanical grip / downforce oriented part of the track. Lots of long sweeping corners, which the BMW really likes. And then you've got that final section of the course taking in Blanchimont and the bus stop chicane all the way round to La Source again. So the Mercedes definitely the superior car in two sections of the circuit, but in that middle section, the BMW is the better car. But it's not all about the car. You've got to actually make use of those advantages if you want to try and get one up on your opponents.
Well, that's exactly it. And each car has their strengths and weaknesses. And like you said, you've got to take advantage of those strengths in order to negate the weaknesses in a way and make sure that where you can gain time, you're pushing hard, and where you're losing it, you've already made up enough time that it doesn't matter if you lose a little bit. So we've seen these guys, they know how to take advantage of it. Their setups work beautifully. And it's actually interesting. We have an Audi, a Mercedes, and a Ford, 1, 2, 3. So we've actually got three different manufacturers in the top three there. So it'll be interesting to see when we get to this restart, which is coming up. Safety car lights are out as we come through the bus stop, how each of these cars is going to go coming through the crazy track that is Spa.
Certainly. Well, the safety car is going to pull into the pits now, but we still have a gap of about 20 seconds to wait until Craig Edwards can take the green flag, of course, on the restarts. Get the green flag out of La Source. You can already see him building up speed here. Actually, he's decided to go before La Source as Craig, so Trent Thomas already responding. John Peacenik responding really well to this. He's kept with them really nicely. As the green flag flies once again, we are back racing on lap 4. And Peacenik now right on the back of Thomas coming into these first few turns, and El Nabi and Fine battling as well. Let's see what happens down the Kemmel Straight here. Peasnick in the draft of Trent, and have a look at that run that he's got. He's going to go for the move here.
Yeah, he's sticking his nose in there. He's right alongside. This is probably going to be Peasnick's position, and there you go. Thomas has let him have it. So that was smart move by Thomas there, and well done by Peasnick. He was on the ball on that restart and just absolutely took advantage of the fact that Thomas was caught sleeping a little bit there. Edwards got the jump. Peasnick saw what was happening, and Edwards just fell right into his clutches. So well done, Peasnick, and that Ford GT is proving to be useful at this track so far.
It certainly is, and it looks like he's starting to close the gap a little bit to Edwards even as we speak, so watch out for John Peasnick in these next few stages of the race. Meanwhile, behind them, the field is pretty evenly spaced. We aren't seeing too much craziness. Looks like everyone... Oh no, I'm seeing Corey Ott's gotten a slowdown. He's just coasting there on the run up to Pouon. So that's a bit of a shame for Mr. Ott. He's lost quite a few positions out of that.
Yeah, not a good time to get a slowdown just as the safety car's gone in because the whole field's bunched up. So unfortunately, he will have lost a good few positions out of that. Looks like he's going to slot in at about 27th position, and he restarted in 19th. So a bit of work to do for Corey tonight to get that gap back, but we've got half an hour of racing left, and as we know, we've seen in previous weeks, all these guys play for keeps. So it'll be great to see how some of these guys cut back through the field.
Yeah, for sure. Looks to me like back up at the front, Craig Edwards has kept that gap nice and large to Peasnick, but he's going to have to watch his mirrors, especially through those slower sections, because Peasnick seems to be able to catch up to him there in the forward. If I'm not mistaken, the Audi is still not the happiest car over curbs, so Edwards has to be very careful, as do his other Audi cohorts around the middle section of this track.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And cars, I'm fairly sure the Mercedes, Ford, and BMW are very comfortable over the curbs. You can pretty much smack them on there and the car's okay. But the Audi, yeah, look, it's known to be killed by curbs on multiple occasions. So they've really got to skirt around there, which can take a bit of the time away from your lap, meaning that you're going to be a bit slower because you can't, I guess, cut the track off a little bit there. So, but like you said, Edwards is maintaining that gap at the moment, although Peasnick is looking a little bit closer as he pulls away from Thomas. And we've got El Nabi right on the back of Thomas now as well. So maybe Thomas is just struggling a little bit to get into a rhythm and find that pace.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. Of course, practicing and qualifying is one thing, but once you get into a race situation, your entire mindset changes. So some people have to be very wary of that, and still unclear just how Trent is dealing with this pressure from El Nabi. Seems to be holding his own through this middle section, but we'll see what happens when they get to the straights. We do know that Forzan is a very committed racer from his campaigns in V8 Scots and the Oceanic Endurance Championship, so it'll be interesting to see how the fight between these two guys sorts itself out. Starting to see some battle packs forming in the back. Oh, hearing
Jeremy Washington has just had a major incident there. The front of his car is well banged up, Reese.
Oh, yeah, that is not good at all. What happened there? Looks like he just lost it by himself coming into Pouon. Car got a bit unsettled over the entry curve and round he went.
Yeah, very much. It's definitely easy enough to do. These cars with their traction control, and ABS, you can hit the brakes, but yeah, here he's just hit the brakes and tried to catch it and it shot him into the wall. The witness marks are there with the tyre marks on the road. So that's unfortunate to see, but Spa has claimed another victim, which is definitely not uncommon.
Yes, indeed. We've gone back live, and I'm having a look down at position 30 back. Anthony Winkleman seems to have come off the best out of the Trick Sim Sports guys after they took their pit stop under that safety car. Oh, Winkleman! Oh my goodness! Big lose! And now he's into the wall!
Wow, that was major. Commentator's curse.
Oh, no!
And into traffic! Oh, he's just missed them there. That was so close.
That was... wow, that was incredible. How did he not hit anyone there? That's going to be straight into the pits or not for Anthony Winkleman. He's going to keep going. Obviously, he's going to take a lap to suss out how his car handles after that incident. Goodness me. I'd just gone to him and was talking about how he'd managed to get past a few guys, but just lost it over the curb coming out of Blanchimont, and into that tank slapper he went. He was just a passenger. It's like he might have clipped the inside curb at Blanchimont, which was what unsettled him. It's a pretty easy thing to do in these cars. GT3s, they are quite easy cars to drive, but at some points they don't have the best mechanical grip. So Winkelmann obviously coming off second best there. So that's 1 out of 3 for Trick Sim Sports out of contention so far.
Having a look at Peasnick and Edwards now. Peasnick has again closed that gap to the Amazon Web Services Audi there, and he is making that Ford GT work tonight. So he's right up on the back of him. Thomas has dropped off more with El Nabi, but these guys, they're fighting hard, and we've still got 25 minutes and a pit stop left in this race. So they're going for it, and I reckon Peasnick is looking a lot better this week than what he did at Donington, although running a little bit wide there, and he's looking a lot more stable. So maybe the setup's a bit better, or maybe he's just learned a bit more about this car and how to drive it well and drive it fast.
Yeah, most likely. The thing is with Peasnick, I did notice him a couple of corners before. He's doing it again there at the exit of Blanchimont. He's in order to get that forward into the positions that it's in, he is driving the absolute wheels off that car, which is extremely admirable. But of course, Peasnick has to watch out for mistakes that can hamper his pursuit of Edwards. You can see there's differences in the body language of their cars. Edwards is just taking those nice wide lines, keeping it nice and smooth through the corners, but I think you'll notice, especially through the middle section of the circuit, Peasnick is wrestling that forward. It's awesome to watch, but it could be costing him time. We'll see down here on the Kemmel Straight how he goes. Using all of the curb on the exit, and now he'll be getting a whisper of a draft from Edwards, but it doesn't look like he'll be able to get any moves done here at this present time. Meanwhile,
yeah, he's just going to have to pull in there, and we've got El Nabi in the background as well, sort of searching around, looking for a gap to try and get around Thomas. He's still very close there, but as they always say, getting up to the back of someone is easy. It's getting past them that's the hard part. So El Nabi, like you said, is a very spirited racer. We saw last week he was in a great battle with Dane Warren as they, I think, caught up to Peasnick actually, and they went 3 wide into the second last turn there as they were all trying to vie for position. So El Nabi knows how to race, and he's definitely determined to get up onto that podium.
He certainly is. You can see he's just having those little looks at the inside of every corner, following behind Trent Thomas. So he's using that old tactic that we talk about quite a bit. Oh, a little bit wide over the AstroTurf, but he's kept it nice and clean for the most part. But he's using the tactic that we talk about so much in these broadcasts, just moving around in the mirrors. If you're having difficulty just getting past your opponent on driving technique alone, sometimes you can unsettle them a bit by moving around in the mirrors. And El Nabi seems to be doing that. Hasn't phased Thomas so far, but we'll see what happens as the race wears on. We are about 19 minutes into this race. Still some time to go. Oh, and Thomas, bit of oversteer through Blanchimont. Managed to hold it, which is really good, and El Nabi is smelling blood. He had a little bit of a look to the inside. It looks like Thomas is going to hold on once again through the bus stop, which doesn't really resemble a bus stop anymore after the changes made before the 2007 Belgian Grand Prix, but this battle could get very spicy now. See El Nabi just taking a bit more of a narrow line through La Source. And behind them, a battle is starting to brew between these 3 Audis.
Yeah, we're starting to see some good battle packs developing in this sort of top 10 area. We've got Briggs and Schooley who are teammates there, and then Leighton Fine just up the road from them. So these Audis,
El Nabi
the guys
with the
have...
run. Sorry,
El Nabi's, that's right. Yeah, El Nabi's got a run now on Thomas, so he's right up the inside there. He's going to pull the same move that Peasnick did. Throw it down the inside. Oh, that was a little bit close there. Probably shouldn't have moved over it at that point of the pass, but he's made it work. But Thomas is right there. El Nabi had a bit of a slow exit out of the corner.
Yeah, I think I heard Trent lift off a bit coming into that corner, so looks like he was prepared to let El Nabi go, just wasn't prepared for him to just move back over the slightest bit on the entry to the corner. But the move is done. Now, Trent just needs to stay with him, possibly save a little bit of fuel here. Otherwise, he'll fall into the clutches of those Audis in due course.
Yeah, and we know the Audis have been fast week in, week out since the update. So these guys, they definitely are not far off the back of Thomas and Elnavi. And watching Peasnick as well, he is just staying behind Edwards. So I'm wondering if he's just using Edwards to fuel save a bit. Because, like you said, that 4GT looks hard to wrestle. But the last couple of laps, the gap changed, I think, 3 thousandths per second. So he's just staying in close and potentially saving that little bit of fuel that might help him get the edge into the pit stops.
Exactly right. We'll see what happens if or when Peasnick pits. I just want to call your attention to something that happened earlier in the lap coming into Pouon between Cameron Dance and Daryl Carter. I was just going through the field observing cars, and an awesome little maneuver made by Dance after Carter held the mother of all drifts into the entry of Pouon. Fantastic stuff between those guys. Just getting a replay of that now. So Cam Dance up to 13th position with that maneuver. Just seeing Carter losing it, but recovering very nicely. Unfortunately, his run was ruined and Dance was able to slip through.
Yeah, we've seen Dance is a pretty talented steerer. And, well, for lack of a better word, he's doing his dance again tonight.
Hold on a minute. We had an incident coming out of La Source, between Philip Worley and Gary Hamilton. Looks to me like Worley tried to hold on to the outside, and Hamilton just tracked out, probably not quite realizing that he had gotten a bit of a run.
Yeah, and we can see Thomas Hinds as well. He's popped up a spot now as we're getting a replay of that incident.
Yeah, it looks to me like Hamilton had every right to track out there. It's just Worley got a little bit of a better run, so unfortunate for both of those guys, but they've still managed to keep going.
And we've just had Hinds spun around, I think by
no.
netcode there, but that was Gary Hamilton. They were battling hard there, and he's been spun around and hit by Philip Worley as well. So unfortunate to see there, but it looked like that netcode had a part to play in that, unfortunately.
Yeah, extremely netcodey. On my screen, Hamilton and Hinds didn't even touch. There was quite a sizable distance between their cars. That's a real shame, but that's one of the things that happens in online racing. Sometimes you just have to consider your latency.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate to see, but I think Hinsey has kept on going. His car didn't look too banged up. And yeah, we'll have to see. He did make some gains, but now he's fallen back a bit into what looks like to be about 14th place.
Yes, indeed. Meanwhile, back up at the front, it looks to me like Edwards and Peasnick are holding station, but we're seeing a bit of a battle pack starting to form here, I think. Looks a bit strung out right now from third back, but I don't know, we might see these guys close up in the next few laps. I'll be watching this with intrigue.
Indeed, and we've seen Schooley and Briggs, teammates, they work very well together, and we've seen them, they end up together in just about every race they do. So they know how to work together and how to keep pushing their way up to the front. So,
oh, Cameron Dance going for a big move on Joshua Skin. Skin just getting a bit of a bad run out of Blanchimont. He dips straight into the pits, does Joshua Skin, but Dance makes up another position. Some very spirited driving from him, moving up through the field once again. We've seen him do that so much this season. He doesn't seem to be much of a qualifier, Cam, but when it comes to the race session, it's like a switch is flicked.
Yeah, Cam is a magnificent racer, and it's just his qualifying isn't as good as probably what it should be, but then again, I myself struggle a bit with qualifying as well, but his race pace is mega, and already he's made up 9 positions, so he is absolutely flying, and we have just about bang on 20 minutes left. So his next target is Scott Kozlowski in that All-Star Motorsports Mercedes, and you can see he's hungry to grab that top 10 and try and maintain his 4th place in the championship.
Certainly. We've got some more cars coming into the pits as well. Thomas Hinds, presumably to repair the damage sustained earlier in that lap, unfortunately. Adam Wright also into the pits.
So those pit stops are just beginning to happen, which will be interesting to see, well, just how far back they go. And I'm curious to see Ross Rizzo, speaking of pit stops and fuel strategies, he's in 25th place in that Trick Sim Sports BMW at the moment. So made up some positions, but probably not carving his way through the field at the rate that he would like. Again, we're not too sure exactly how much fuel these guys have or haven't taken on board, but it did not look like much when they went into the pit lane.
Yes, I think they might have been banking on another safety car in the later stages of the race, considering how short their stop was. As we're looking at Trent Thomas and Leighton Fine now as they've come together, Thomas just slipping back gradually over the course of this race, and now he's got that trio of Audis behind him, and this could get very spicy in the next few laps.
Yeah, well, Thomas hasn't had the best race pace. Unfortunately, he slipped down from second after not getting a great start. And yeah, now, like you said, he's got that trio of Audis right up behind him, the two DPR guys, and then the crazy car from Mad Cow Racing. So he's run a bit wide there as well. And these three Audis, they are looking hungry. You've got both the DPR boys behind him, and then you've also got Leighton Fine, who in the draft up through Oi Rouge may be able to get right up close to him and make a move in the next corner, depending. Oh, he's actually run wide there, very wide.
Yeah,
nearly put that in the wall.
Yeah, so that's actually opened up an opportunity here for Jacob Schooley to try and get by. He's going to pull out and try the move here on Leighton, but it seems that Leighton is going real hard under the brakes, and Schooley's just going to have to slot back in behind. But I guess that really speaks to how much the aero is affected on these cars. As we see, the battle for the lead is really heating up now. Edwards and Peasnick have come back together here at the start of the second sector, and Peasnick, big moment there. He's just struggling with that car through Brazil, or No Name Corner, as it is often called. And Forzan El Nabi is now right in with these guys. Edwards has managed to eke out that gap a little bit more as Peasnick struggled a little bit with his car through that sequence, but El Nabi will have seen that, and I think he might already be plotting ways in which he can try and get second here. Oh, big moment from Peasnick once again, just running over those curbs and not having the best of times. He's gotten a bit flustered after that incident.
Yeah, well, he's got to resettle again in the car, and he's struggling. I think somebody in the chat, on the YouTube chat, called this car a tank, and that is probably accurate, to be honest with you. And we're just having a look back at Isaac Nichols here as well, who's going slow out on track at the moment. He may have had a spin.
Yes.
Yep.
We've got a replay of that on screen right now. Unfortunately, I'm not able to see it because of internet dramas, but very unfortunate for Nichols.
That was just, he got a bit too much curb on the way into No Name Corner and got loose and bumped off of it and locked the rears and went round. He's only just touched the wall there, so I'm not even. So he's just going to keep on going after having that little spin there, luckily.
Well, that's always good to see. No harm, no foul. Continue on. So meanwhile, Gary Hamilton is now in the pits, and he's going to slip down the order. He'll be wanting to get that little bit of damage he's sustained repaired, but it remains to be seen if he gets fuel in this stop. Meanwhile, Jacob Schooley right on the back here of Leighton Fine. A little bit of a blink, but he's going to try and go for this move again. Fine braking as late as ever, but he just goes wide to let Schooley through. Smart move from Fine. No point in trying to fight that move, especially when you've got Schooley's teammate right behind looking to capitalise.
Yeah, that's it. So Fine is, he's made sure that position behind Schooley remains his, but now he's got to watch out for Reese because those DPR guys, they are a fast combo, and like I said, they work well together. So Fine's in a bit of a DPR sandwich at the moment, and it's just going to have to watch out because they're both looking pretty racy at the moment. I'll be interested to see Schooley's pace as he comes up to the back of Thomas here.
Yeah, speaking of Thomas, he's actually benefited from that. He's managed to find a little bit of a gap to the Audi trio once again, but you can see Schooley is looking incredibly aggressive through the corners. I predict he'll catch up to Thomas perhaps by the time they get to La Source next.
Yeah, very possibly. That car is looking very good and pretty much like it's on rails at the moment. We haven't seen him make too many mistakes, and he's just racing hard and doing what he loves, basically. So I think with a bit of draft here, as well as the pace that he's got, like you said, he'll probably be able to catch Thomas pretty fast. But again, the issue is getting past him and grabbing that fourth position.
Yes, indeed. That is the main order of things. Battle for the... Sorry, Briggs. Oh, goodness me. It looks like he's just gotten through. And Leighton Fine right on cue into the pits. So I think he's decided he's had enough of this, and he's just going to trundle his way down, perhaps get a bit of damage repaired, fueled up.
Yeah, that's it. So now he's out of that battle for the time being. So it'll be interesting to see where Schooley and Briggs and Fine all end up once the pit stops all leak out. But it looks like Schooley and Briggs had some faster pace anyway, so they may well keep those positions once they pit as well. And just noticing here, Peacenik is still fairly close to Edwards there, but El Nabi is ever looming in the background. You can just see that angry-looking Mercedes back there, and I reckon if he can catch up, he is going to be hungry for that second place and even first if he can manage it. So we've got to keep an eye on that, even though Peacenik has just been sitting behind Edwards this whole race, but I think El Nabi's not going to have any of that. He's going to want to go for it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He'll probably be banking on these guys getting a little bit closer, involving each other in the same piece of track and slowing each other down. That would really benefit El Nabi here. But looks to me like, as you said, Peacenik is pretty content to sit behind Edwards for the most part. Seems like every time he gets close to Edwards, Peacenik unfortunately has a little bit of an oopsie moment with his car and falls back again. So hopefully that's not the story of the entire race. Hopefully we can see a proper battle start to form between these guys, because we always like a good battle for the lead, don't we?
Oh, that's for sure. And these guys have been so close all race, it'd almost be a shame to not have a good battle at the end of the race to decide who gets first, second, and third.
Yes, indeed. Monitoring Anthony Winkleman, he's about to make up another position. He's down in 37th, about to become 36th, making his way past Hayden Ford on the run up to Blanchimont. And the rest of the Trick Sim Sports guys are continually just chipping away. Ross Rizzo is now up to 18th position, Martin Silvassi in 19th. Tell you what, once again, that was a very good move, them pitting under safety car. They've actually lost the minimum amount of time you could possibly lose if you decide to pit. So look for other drivers pitting as this race ends and them making up more positions. I don't know if they'll be able to get all the way back up the front, though. We'll have to see.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, looking at the timing at the moment, in 17th we have Ross Rizzo, and he is the first person to have pitted out of everyone up to him. So the top 16 are yet to actually throw it down the pit lane as Daniel Wisdale does come in. So there is very good potential for Rizzo and Silvassi behind him to make up some more spots. The big question is how much fuel they have left in their tanks and how much they've used to get to where they are.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We've also got to consider whether or not other drivers in front of them have been fuel saving. Having observed them, having observed all the drivers over the course of the race, I think it's safe to say that we aren't seeing much of any fuel saving at all.
Yeah, sorry, Reese. We've just had Cam Dance make a move down the inside of Sislowski, and that was for 8th place.
Oh, yeah.
So Dance is still making moves through the field, as we see him do every week, and putting on a show for us. So he's going to keep on going. Sislowski tries to sort of come back at him there.
Yeah, he certainly does. Meanwhile, Corey Ott has just gone off the track. He got involved in a bit of an incident with Steve Jansen, who went rather wide at Lacombe.
Yeah, sort of just bumped him out of the way there, which is easy enough to do. Unfortunately, if you're going a bit too hot, you do a sort of a four-wheel drift into the guy, but only minor contact. But again, Corey's gotten slowed down from that, so he's just going to have to relent that position, and he's flashing his lights. I don't think he's too happy about that.
Yeah, Steve Jansen had been embroiled in quite an intense battle with Carl Raper over the last few laps, and due to that incident, he's dropped off from the back of the Performance Sim Sports driver. So who knows? Steve Jansen versus Corey Ott, it might start to boil over in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, well, Ott, he's a good racer, but sometimes he tries to, yeah, he can get a little bit frustrated. So we may see the red mist descend here. And if he can get back close enough, he'll really be looking to try and make that move work and get it done ASAP.
Yes, indeed. Just going back ever so briefly to the Trick Sim Sport question. I've been looking at, been monitoring their progress, and Leighton Fine, I'm unsure of how long his pit stop was. He's making his way back through the field and getting up into very close quarters with Neil De Bruyne, but he's come out a very long way behind the Trick Sim Sport BMWs. So I don't know how this bodes for them. It looks like same pit stop time between Leighton Fine and the Trick Sim Sport boys. But yeah, it seems that Fine has really lost out with that green flag pit stop. So I'll change my opinion from earlier and say look out for Rizzo and Silvassi to really start threatening the front pack.
Yeah, they've got a bit of pace under them too. That Rizzo just did his fastest lap being a 2:17.4, which is a pretty good lap, and he's been doing 2:17s fairly consistently. But Edwards up the front with Peasnick, they've been doing 16s. So I think we might see Rizzo and Silvassi crack the top 10, but it'll be hard for them to move up any further than that, depending on the speed of these guys up the front and how hard they keep going at it.
Yeah, and how long their pit stops take as well, because I think without a doubt these guys are going to have to pit before the end.
Yeah, the organisers of this event are pretty smart, and they know how to make sure the fuel levels are just short enough that even with a bit of fuel saving, you can't really make it to the end. So they need at least a splash and dash to get there. So, Peasnick just had a big moment there. Wow, I'm amazed that he saved that. Well done. That was mega. Wow.
Insanity there from John Peasnick, wrestling that Ford to the death once again through Blanchimont, where others fishtailed. Peasnick managed to keep it under control. But of course that means that he's going to have to start all over again once more to try and catch up to the back of Craig Edwards here.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he's lost too much time. He's still there or thereabouts. We'll see what the official time is as they come across the line. It is 7/10 by the looks of it, so that's not too bad. That's only within a couple of tenths of where he's been for most of the race. So yeah, you don't want to be having mistakes like that, but he hasn't lost out too much.
Oh, having a look in the fence there. That's Isaac Nichols up the top of the hill. That's a pretty dangerous place to be stopped. So hopefully he manages to get that thing going cleanly. Something has happened to Forzan El Nabi. He's a lot further back than he was. I'm just rewinding to see what went on, obviously earlier this lap.
His lap times dropped off about a second to a second and a half over the last 2 laps.
That's interesting.
His pace was right on with the likes of Peasnick and Edwards doing the 16s, and all of a sudden he's dropped back to mid to high 17s.
Huh. That's intriguing.
Yeah, something funky's happened there.
Possibly,
he may be trying to do the ultimate fuel save here, and has just gotten right out of it. So have to keep an eye on that. It seems weird. The tyres don't drop off that badly, so it can't be overall pace unless he's having a hardware issue. But it may be, maybe fuel saving. He's just trying to make it to the end. We've only got 5.5 minutes left here, and JRT's predicting about 3 to 4 laps in that time.
Well, if Forzan El Nabi can pull that off, it will definitely be the fuel-saving run to end all fuel-saving runs.
Yeah, look, I think if he pulls it off, we can give him a badge of honour and say you've done well. You can see it in his times. He's still managing to stay ahead of Thomas, though. So he's managing that fairly well for the time being, but we'll have to see. I'm surprised these guys haven't pitted yet, but we may see them come in, or maybe they're all fuel-saving. Who knows? It's hard to tell from up here in the comms box.
Schoolie in, so there we go. That's another driver into the pits. Peasnick in the pits as well. So all of these guys are going to be jumping in. And Forzan El Nabi, if he is indeed fuel saving, as his last lap was a 2 minute 20.145,
Oh, definitely fuel saving then. That is that's ridiculously slow pace for just a regular race pace. So I reckon
Oh,
he is lifting off clutch coast into a lot of the corners here.
could he do it? 25 seconds between Ross Rizzo and Forzan El Nabi, so... Oh, I don't know what's going to happen here.
This happens every week. We think it's all settled, and all of a sudden, throw in a curveball. El Nabi is our curveball this week, and we've got Rizzo and Silvassi as well in those Trick Sim Sports BMWs, and the pit transit, including your pit stop, is 1 minute and 8 seconds by the looks of it, roughly around that time. So if El Nabi pits, Rizzo and Silvassi are probably going to get the better end of that deal. So there's a lot riding on El Nabi being able to save fuel here and make it to the end of this race.
Yes, indeed. Well, John Piesnik just making his way out of the pits now, and we'll have to wait and see where he pops out in the grand scheme of things. The big question on my mind is what are Craig Edwards and Trent Thomas going to do? It looks like they're still keeping up with those fast lap times, so they are definitely going to be pitting. Raper and Wilson and Rizzo, though, embroiled in a fight.
Wow.
Have a look at this pack. Wow, this is insane.
This is angry. This is angry. I'm not liking what I'm seeing here. People cutting across each other. This is that's a lot of BMWs too. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. This quite the pack that we're seeing at the moment is. Unfortunately, I'm running into a few internet issues, so I'm going to have to close and restart my sim.
All right. Looks like I've got to do some talking. So
yeah.
watching Rizzo here, he's all over the back of Wilson, and he's looking for ways to get past here. So in the background there, Silvassi's trying to make a move. He hasn't made it stick, though, on that number 15 WPC concreting car. So, yeah, these guys are fighting for young and old, and Silvassi and Rizzo are fighting for much more than 14th and 15th place, and I think in this case 12th place as well. They're fighting to possibly make it onto podium if El Nabi pits. So this is going to be very interesting. El Nabi's gone up into 3rd place now with Edwards and Thomas. They're still out on track, so they're keeping on, but their times are not slowing down like El Nabi has. So this will be very interesting to see. El Nabi pulled a 2-minute 19.1 there. Again, very slow for what we were seeing out of him. His times were consistent mid to low 216s before this, so he is bulk fuel saving. This is minus 100 Jamie Whincup 2014 style fuel saving. So we've got 1 minute and 45 seconds left here, and JRT's predicting 1.5 laps to 2 laps depending on the leaders cross the line. So Edwards and Thomas, they're still going. This could still end up being a 1-2 for Fusion Sim Racing. I don't know. I'm honestly perplexed here, Reese. I don't know who's going to come out on top.
This is the big question. Like, as you said, it is full 2014 Jamie Whincup style fuel saving from El Nabi. And like I said before, if he can pull this off, then it'll probably be one of the greatest victories we've seen all season. El Nabi, we've observed in the other series, he really likes to fuel save. So he's known for these kinds of strategies, but he's never pulled it off with this kind of extremity before. So if he can do this, it'd just be a whole new level in terms of what fuel saving can do for you.
Well, that's exactly it. And quick check-in on the Trick Sim Sports guys. We've got Rizzo and Silvassi. They're sitting in 6th and 7th at the moment. So Rizzo is 1 position up on where he started, and Silvassi is 4. So this is looking to be like quite the master plan from the Trick Sim Sports guys. They played that safety car beautifully, and well, they're still up there. So we're still waiting on. And we've got Edwards in the pit lane. Edwards is in for his fuel stop. So now he cannot go on any longer. We'll watch Thomas here. Thomas has peeled in as well. So that is going to leave El Nabi in the lead if he keeps on going. El Nabi is in the pit lane.
Oh, no. So there we go. He couldn't make it to the end. So now it falls into the hands of Scott Seslowski saving as well. But now it falls into the hands of John Piesnik. What will he be able to do? And Rizzo as well. Ross Rizzo. Seslowski is in, so now... Oh, goodness me. We're seeing guys saving all over the place. Daryl Carter saving fuel.
I think Carter might be out of fuel. He's going very slow there.
There we go. He's in.
He's in the
the
pits.
But now,
Has this...
Rizzo is your leader. Rizzo is your effective leader now.
Oh my goodness, this race has just been completely blown up. Wow, look at that. Well done, Trick Sim Sports. You have tricked us all tonight. We looked at your strategy and we thought, oh, is it going to work? And now Ross Rizzo, your series champion from last year, is leading the race on the last lap.
Something's happened to Edwards in the pit stop as well. He's been sitting still for a very long time. He might have hit... Wait a minute. I'm going to rewind here.
Edwards, yeah, he's been in the pit lane for nearly a minute, in his box, sorry, for nearly a minute. So Edwards, he has just thrown away.
He ran out of fuel.
No, he's out of fuel. So he had to escape back to the pit box. That is heartbreak.
Wow. He held out for as long as he could and could not hold on. What an end to this race. Edwards is back out, but the amount of positions he's lost, God, he'll be kicking himself for that.
That's for sure. So we've got Peasnick up in second place now. So our top five, our readjusted top five are Ross Rizzo, John Peasnick, Martin Silvassi, Jacob Schooley, and Trent Thomas. So, wow, some mega strategy from these guys here has led to them being able to come up. And it looks like if these Trick Sim Sport guys can keep it clean, they will take a double podium tonight.
Yep. Wow. What a play. Nothing more I can say. What a play. And you have to wonder, why were they the only ones who pitted under the first safety car?
Yeah, surely there had to be others that saw that strategy and saw that it was viable. Maybe they thought they couldn't make it to the end. And I mean, I guess we're about to find out. But it looks like these Trick Sim Sports guys took the exact same pit stop as everyone else. So they've taken, by the looks of it, the same amount of fuel on board, so they should ideally be able to make it to the end. So well done. As we've got Ross Rizzo coming around through the bus stop now. I'm sure he's patting himself on the back and patting the team on the back here for that strategy call earlier on in the race. They had to come back and fight through it all, but wow, congratulations. That was an awesome drive.
Yep, truly excellent stuff from Trick Sim Sports. A shame about Anthony Winkleman, but Trick has still managed to get two cars onto the podium there, and Peasnick bringing home a well-deserved second. Fantastic stuff from all those guys. And how about Jacob Schooley making his way all the way up to fourth place?
Yeah.
Oh, meanwhile, Craig Edwards and Scott Kozlowski, it's not done between these guys. Can Kozlowski hold on? Edwards trying to go for that over-under. He doesn't have the traction. Kozlowski's going to beat him out here.
Yeah, they both got a little bit sideways out of the bus stop there, and it would have disadvantaged Kozlowski, but Edwards did the exact same thing. So Edwards went from first to 17th in the end there. So he lost out massively because he just ran out of fuel. So where did El Nabi end up? El Nabi was 8th after trying to fuel save, and we've got Leighton Fine and Briggs ended up coming 6th and 7th. So what a jumbled field with some fuel saving, some strategy. What a race tonight, Reese.
Yeah, I tell you what, driver of the day for me, like, completely went under our radar. Damon Stockton. Look at where he started, in 31st. He finished in 11th. What a drive from Damon Stockton, and we barely paid any attention to him all race.
That is mega. Well done, Damon. That, I think, is our biggest mover as well through the field tonight. Yeah, well, I guess it's a good thing if we don't pay any attention to him, because it means that he's not getting any crashes. He's not hitting anyone off the track. He's just made his way through the field, done his thing, and look where he's come out in 11th place. That's a great effort there.
It certainly is. What an absolutely fantastic race that was. Before we go to interviewing our top three, I think we'll just run through the race results. So Ross Rizzo, car number 1, finishing in position number 1 from 7th place. A absolute masterstroke in strategy from Trick Sim Sports, getting 2 cars onto the podium with Martin Silvassi in 3rd, John Peasnick taking that 2nd place on the podium. Jacob Schooley in 4th. Trent Thomas started 2nd, finished in 5th. Leighton Fine finishing a position down from where he started. Adam Briggs making his way up to 7th, with El Nabi after starting 3rd, pressuring those top 2 for most of the race, finishing in 8th position, Philip Worley in 9th, and rounding out the top 10, Gary Hamilton.
And in 11th place, we've got Damon Stockton, our biggest mover. He's made up 20 positions this race from 31st on the grid. Liam Burns in 12th. Cameron Dance having made up 7 positions in 13th. Thomas Hinz in 14th. Philip Morton 15th. Scott Kozlowski 16th after just holding off Craig Edwards on that last lap, with Edwards in 17th. Daniel Misdale 18th. Adam Wright 19th. And rounding out the top 20 is James Wilson.
In 21st position, Daryl Carter, after saving on the last lap, unfortunately lost out as well. Matthew Huppert's in 22nd position. Reese Keane in 23rd. 24th position, Mark Simon with Joshua Skin in 25th. 26th, Benjamin Johnson. And Matthew Clote taking up 27th. Anthony Winkleman, one of the stories of our race, just more heartbreak there. Started really well, was set to really capitalize on that strategy call with the rest of the Trick Sim Sports guys, but unfortunately he has to settle for 28th. Jeremy Washington in 29th, with Neil De Bruyne rounding out the top 30.
And in 31st, we have James McKee. In 32nd, Chris Hill. 33rd, Hayden Ford. 34th, Steve Jansen. Carl Raper in 35th, Corey Ott 36th, Aaron O'Brien 37th, Gregory Colgan 38th, Isaac Nichols 39th, and then our DNFs for the night were Thomas McMillan and Dan King, rounding out 40th and 41st.
That was your 41 car strong field for Oceanic Sprint Championship Round 5 at Spa-Francorchamps. And now we have our race winner in the interview box with us. Welcome, Ross Rizzo, and congratulations. That strategy call was magic from you guys. How much thought went into that? Were you prepared to pit under safety car?
Well, I thought about the idea while I was at work today, thinking, oh, what if there's a shunted Eau Rouge? I don't want to get involved. Wait, there might be a safety car. The safety car is really long around here, and because it's a timed race, we'll see what we can manage. And then basically, I teased the idea with the guys earlier, and then made a decision as we went into the bus stop. We're doing it. And then I said, well, I'm doing it. You can join me if you want. And yeah.
Well, it was almost
marginal.
Yeah, certainly. It was almost a podium lockout for you guys, but unfortunately, we had Winkleman have his incident out of Blanchimont. So you guys definitely had the potential there to really capitalize. So considering the fact that it was, I guess, a relatively late call from you guys to do that strategy, are you surprised that no one else did it?
Yes. That had me quite nervous that no one really joined us in front or behind, thinking how have we missed something. But I was still confident in the numbers, so it's still a little nervous not to see anyone else.
Well, looking at the championship standings, you've definitely consolidated your championship lead here, and with Adam Briggs and Craig Edwards finishing down in the field relative to you, going into the next round, you obviously must be pretty chuffed, and you've got a nice buffer there.
Start of the season, I may never get a chance to run the number one again. So I'm beside myself that I'm actually leading the championship at this stage against some of the competition. So look, we'll just play it race by race. Obviously, what I've been doing for the last season and a half has been working, so nothing will change there. And hope all goes well for the rest of the season.
Well, that's some very good words there from you, Ross, to finish up. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next round at Monza.
Enjoyed.
Ross Rizzo there for Trick Sim Sports. The next person that we're going to bring in, I confess I'm not quite sure who we've got here because of the username. Is this John Peasley?
No, this is Martin.
No? Martin. Well, welcome to the commentary box here, Martin. And your race obviously went very interesting. There was some real carnage there on lap one. What was your view of that?
Well, I didn't quite see the carnage. I was a bit ahead of that, but I think we did quite a good strategy call to pit under the safety car and save a whole heap of time and fuel. So yeah, got to hand it to Ross there for the strategy call. Unfortunately, one of our cars had an incident Otherwise, I think it would have been maybe a 1-2-3 or 1-2-3-4. It would have been nice.
Certainly would have from your perspective. Well, the BMW here at Spa obviously had a really good match against the Mercedes and the Audi, but the next round coming up is Monza. Obviously, you guys have done really well here, especially with that fuel strategy, but we don't have potential for that kind of strategy shake up at Monza, I believe, with a much shorter pit lane, and the BMW is still not the best car in a straight line. So, what are you guys trying to do to combat that?
Yeah, I think every week we keep making the car better, and keep making it quicker in a straight line. So I think provided we qualify half decently, and able to stay with the pack, I think the BMW could be still quite competitive there.
Well, we'll see how that goes in 2 weeks' time. Martin Silvassi, thank you very much for joining us in the commentary box, and congratulations once again on your podium.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, guys. Cheers.
That was Martin Silvassi there for Trick Sim Sports, and unfortunately, it doesn't seem like we will be joined by John Peace next. So, for our final interview of the night, we'll bring in Damon Stockton. Damon, you really flew under the radar tonight. We barely gave you the time of day in the broadcast. So when we looked at the results at the end of the race and saw you in 11th place from starting 31st, what a run! How did you do it?
Yeah, how's it, guys? Well, I got a bit lucky with this one, to be honest. Just got on with the safety car, just pitted, took the chance, running pretty far back. So yeah, took the chance, fuel saved the whole race, and yeah, popped out in 11th. I think I made 2 on-track passes, honestly, throughout that whole race.
I see. So you were the one person who decided to go in with the Trick Sim Sport guys under safety car. I asked the same question to Ross Rizzo before. Were you surprised that no one else did that?
Um, Not really. I just team decided no, it wasn't a good idea, but yeah, I took the chance. Mathematically, yeah, it wouldn't have enough. You wouldn't really have enough to make it, but with the fuel saving, I was running on map 4 most of the race. So yeah, it's a rough one.
Yeah, certainly. But nonetheless, you have an 11th place to get out of that after starting outside of the top 30. So looking forward to the next round. It's at Monza. You are in the Mercedes, if my assumption is correct. So Monza will probably be a fruitful round for you with that car's straight line speed.
No, I'm in the BMW actually. So.
Oops-a-daisy. I am extremely sorry. That's a massive faux pas. I'll just I'll put that into the mental bank and move swiftly on. So flipping the script a little bit, Monza is not a good track for the BMW.
No.
Yeah. So how are you trying to combat that? Are you looking to try and capitalize on mechanical grip through the middle sector?
Oh, I'm gonna have to. There's no point trying to race people down the straight. It's gonna have to really dominate through that middle area. The boys at DPR, they know how to throw a good setup together, and they help me quite a bit on these setups. So I'm sure we, as a team, can work together, get the BMW through it.
Awesome stuff. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Damon. Terribly sorry for my incorrect assumption about the car you've driven.
All good,
And
man.
we'll see you in 2 weeks' time in Italy.
Awesome. Thanks, Blakes.
Damon Stockton for DPR Racing Team there, final interviewee for the night. Well, Brock, what a race it's been here in the Oceanic Sprint Championship. I cannot wait for the rest of the season. You know, this race, I think, was one of the best of the season so far.
I completely agree. We had some great battles throughout the race, and then the absolute backflip of strategy and how we thought some people might be able to make it to the end and they didn't. We saw Edwards just ran out of fuel at the wrong time, and Ross Rizzo comes through to take the win. So tonight there were curveballs being thrown left, right, and centre. But yeah, I would agree. I reckon it was one of the best races of the season, and we still have the second half of this series to go.
We certainly do. The next round of this championship is going to be in 2 weeks' time, the 11th of April, at the Autodromo Nazionale Monza. And looking at the website, it seems that we will be using the Grand Prix layout without the first chicane. So it's going to be straight line speed city. The Mercedes will definitely be looking to be the superior car there. So I can't wait to see the slipstreaming battles that result from that. Thank you very much for joining me once again, Brock. It was a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to join you, Reese. And if the season keeps on like this, we're going to be all worn out by the end of it, I reckon.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But we're going to be having a hell of a time while we're doing it. Thank you very much for joining us here on V8's Online for the GT League's Australia Oceanic Sprint Championship. Your winner, Ross Rizzo. Podium completed once again by John Peacenik and Martin Silvassi. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time in this series in particular. The action never stops here on V8's Online. We'll be back very, very soon. See you later.